Good evening, and welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is the evening of May 16th, 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. And first off, this evening, I'd like to invite you to stand and join us in an invocation led by Father Kyle Logan, graced by the Anglican Church, graced by the C Anglican Church, and I will follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Father Logan?
Let's pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down on those who hold public office, especially Bob, Beth, Tara, Eric, Shane, Jim, and Brian, the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and Facebook, and will be broadcast on cable channel 10, HD 1090 following the meeting. Attendees are participating in person and via teleconference. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So it looks to me like we have a full council, and at this point we have one vacancy which we're going to talk about filling before long, but other than that, our council's full, so we won't do a roll call. Moving on to the agenda. Any suggested changes to our agenda? If not, it will be approved as presented. Looks like that's the case. We'll then move on to item number 2, presentations, honors, and recognitions. And tonight we have a proclamation which our Mayor Pro Tem so graciously agreed to read at the last minute. Mayor Pro Tem Heisen.
I was kind of voluntold at the very last minute. Proclamation, connecting the world through public works. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of Oak Harbor. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our community's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings and properties which are essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest of the citizens, civic leaders, and children of the city of Oak Harbor to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works professionals and programs, and whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now, therefore, we, Mayor Robert Severns, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through the 27th, 2023, as National Public Works Week. We urge all citizens, organizations, and government agencies to join in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health, safety, and quality of life. Signed the 16th day of May, 2023, Bob Severns, Mayor.
Well done, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you very much.
I wrote on the copy of it.
Okay, we're going to move on then at this time to our next section on the agenda, the citizen comment period.
Rob, I think we left us off.
What did I do?
We didn't get that honor. Julie, did you get that honor?
It's under mayor's comments, chief.
Down the line.
Just a little bit down the line.
Farther, I will stand here patiently.
We could, we could change the agenda if you'd like. Thanks, Chief. No problem. We'll get to you in a minute. Citizen comment period at this time. This is a time when citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the regular agenda at this time, citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comment or contact our city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council, but will not be displayed. We have received 2 public comments since our last regular meeting, one regarding dog parks and another regarding our utilities counter staff customer service. They are displayed on the screen at this time. So I'll give you a moment to read those. Thank you for those. So we'll turn to the public present tonight. Do we have a list of, even if you didn't get on the list, we'll give you a chance when we're done here, but I'll start with our clerk, Julie.
Thank you, Mayor. The first on our list is Jay Cochran.
Do you want me to do it now or at the agenda item time?
If you're doing the contract, you do that at agenda item.
All right. Moving on then, the next on our list is the Oak Harbor High School Debate Club.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Partridge. I'm here representing the Oak Harbor High School Debate Club. And with me, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Grace Wayne-Skaggs, and our first-year debate team who's in the front. We are here bringing forward some recommendations about our roads, sidewalks, traffic signals, and inclusive accessibility options to buildings. In all communities, we can see that road conditions affect the security of drivers as well as pedestrians, and when road conditions are poor, this can cause severe problems. There are many roads in Oak Harbor in need of renovation, including Whidbey Avenue, Altfield, and the length of Highway 20. Without improvement, us as a city may encounter difficulties with the security of our community. For example, the highway goes from 2 lanes, merges to 1 as you go through town. It's a highway that hundreds of cars drive on every day, generally with a lack of signs alerting drivers to the shift of safe speed limits. Driving on such a narrow road can be demanding. From extending the width of roads to installing more highway signs, we stand behind the importance of ridding the city of this obstacle.
In addition, a theme that follows is sidewalks and crosswalks. With the possibility of widening our roads, we have confidence that adding and improving sidewalks would increase the well-being of everyone in the community. There are still many roads in Oak Harbor lacking the needed sidewalks, causing there to be dangerous situations for pedestrians when commuting. Walking our streets are the lives that make up Oak Harbor, ranging from senior citizens to elementary students. Without these sidewalks, we risk the well-being of pedestrians, big and small. Walking on the shoulder of the road is a risky and unavoidable situation with our current conditions. The rate of complications would decrease tremendously if, with the maintenance of traffic signs or markings that have been damaged by accident or natural causes, and implementation of better sidewalks and adding light crosswalks. Lastly, I'd like to bring up accessibility for all people, not just to buildings, but also in buildings. As students, children, grandchildren, and more, we maintain the significance of accessibility, and we can imagine the impact of added support in the city. We suggest more elevators in multi-level buildings, such as the high school, ramps, bike lanes, and secure paths and walkways.
Very well done, thank you. Amen on sidewalks and elevators and lots of that. I guess one comment I have is I believe Altfield Road is probably not inside of the city limits. And that's an important factor, but you are so right on in so many ways. Thank you so much. Next, anyone else?
That concludes the list for this time, Mayor.
All right. So I will, again, just announce if there's anyone here that would like to speak, even though you didn't get signed up. Now would be the time. If not, we'll close public comment. Okay? We'll go to item number 4, which is our consent agenda. Staff has presented the listed consent agenda, and that was included in your meeting packet. Any objections or changes? That's about the shortest one I can remember. I believe it was an A and a B only. So not much to argue about, or not much to discuss there, I mean. So consent agenda will be approved as presented. And now we will turn to the mayor's comments. Item number 1, National Police Week. During National Police Week, we take time to honor the men and women in law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day to keep our communities safe. The week-long recognition coincides with National Peace Officers Memorial Day, which is May 15th, which President John F. Kennedy signed into law in 1962. Thank you to our outstanding police force for all that you do, and I'd like to turn it to the chief for a few minutes here. Chief Dresker.
And I talked to the mayor earlier about this article that I read today, and as we talked about it, then I talked to him about reading it, so I'm going to do so in a second. I do want to pay homage to the Public Works for their week next week. I was out on a bike today, that's the clothing that I'm wearing. Plus it cuts down on the gleam from my head from whatever camera is back there, but saw Tally out there with one of our seasonal workers. It's been great working with our Public Works people, and you guys do a great job. Appreciate it. So I'm going to read this article, 3 minutes or less, hopefully. And it's not my article. It's an article in a National Police magazine written by a gentleman by the name of Craig Floyd. And I'll just get into it. I cut some things out for sake of time. Why Americans should care about National Police Week. This week is National Police Week, a time to honor and remember law enforcement's service and sacrifice. The last few years have been tough: rising crime, fewer officers on duty, declining morale, and more line of duty deaths for starters. After 4 decades of advocating for law enforcement officers as a founding CEO of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, and now Citizens Behind the Badge, I am a private citizen with a unique perspective on the men and women who serve in this profession. I have gone on ride-alongs and seen the squalor they encounter every day. I have observed firsthand the bravery shown routinely by police when arresting violent felons. The surviving spouse of a fallen officer once told me about a homeless man who came to her husband's funeral to pay his respects. Unbeknownst to his wife, her husband had stopped by to check on the homeless man every night before going home. This is what police officers do when nobody's looking or filming. Hope I can get through this all without tearing up a little bit here, too. Last Christmas, 2 Maryland State Troopers raised nearly $5,000 to purchase Christmas gifts for 3 young children whose parents were tragically killed in an auto crash. A nice thing to do, but pretty typical when it comes to our police. And I'll insert my own byline here. Firefighters are right there with us on that. In April, a Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant spotted a vehicle going the wrong direction on an interstate highway. Recognizing the deadly danger this posed to other motorists, his training and instincts kicked in, and he crashed the patrol vehicle into the wrong way pickup, undoubtedly saving many lives while risking his own. Who does such things? While our law enforcement officers may not be perfect, there are some who are overzealous in their efforts to find wrong with law enforcement at the expense of all that is right. Our officers will always be under a microscope and held to a very high standard. The reason is simple and understandable. A man or woman wearing a badge and carrying a gun can change or take another person's life. That is why the current mass exodus of veteran officers and the failure to recruit qualified replacements is so troubling. According to recent PERF, it's an acronym, statistics, there were 50% more officer resignations in 2022 than 2019. Officer retirements for that same period were 20% higher. They've also reported that 3 out of 4 police departments nationwide are experiencing a decline in applicants. Our nation has fewer law enforcement officers per residence than at any other time in the last quarter century. And I'm going to skip some things that he had for sake of time and picking up later. More than 800,000 officers put their lives at risk every day for our safety and protection. This is nationwide. Officers make about 10 million arrests annually and have a total of roughly 60 million interactions with the public each year. yet force is used by officers less than 2% of the time. And misconduct by officers occurs less than 1% of the time. This is according to statistics from those who had police interaction in 2020. Law enforcement officers typically encounter between 400 to 600 traumatic events during their career, compared with 3 or 4 for the average citizen. This has contributed to a 54% higher suicide rate among officers than among other American workers. Last year, 331 officers were killed or injured by gunfire. Over the last 2 years, more than 800 officers have died in the line of duty, the most in the U.S. history. One of the reasons for the high death rate in law enforcement over the past 2 years was brought about through their contact with people in COVID-19, where many officers passed away as a result of getting COVID. In 1991, we, and this is just gentleman writing, who was intricate in the process, we dedicated the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. There were 12,561 names inscribed on that monument. These are deceased officers over the course of history. We thought it would be 100 years or more before we'd run out of space. We were wrong. With 556 new additions this year, there are now 23,785 names on the memorial and the walls that have already been expanded for the thousands of other fallen American heroes who will die protecting our communities in the future. We owe all who have served and sacrificed, along with their families, and I'll insert families, big portion, a huge debt of gratitude during National Police Week and every week. And I'll end it at that. I just thought that would be an appropriate thing to read. And I and we at the police department very much appreciate the support you as council and mayor provide us each and every day. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Be safe out there. Okay, we're still under mayor's comments. I've got a few other things here. Voter registration this week is filing week for government offices, and it's a great opportunity to remind our citizens to register to vote. Office closures, city offices will be closed in observance of Memorial Day on Monday, May 29th. Association of Washington Cities AWC Annual Conference will be held in Spokane, June 20 through June 23. Council members wishing to attend, please let Executive Assistant Mikhail Finkel know by the end of this week. Roof repairs, the center is closed May 14 through the 23rd for roof replacement. Cooling centers, the Snow Isle Library is open as a cooling center in times of high temperatures. Splash Park, Shipwreck Shore Splash Park is open weekends and will be open daily starting Saturday, June 17th. Public Works construction projects, this is construction season. See our website for details on City Public Works / engineering projects around town. Island Transit, as noted a while back by Councilmember Munns, Island Transit begins Sunday service starting May 29th, serving Whidbey and Camano Islands. Boards and committees, the city has openings on our Historic Preservation Board, our Investment Committee, our Arts Commission, our Planning Commission, and our Salary Commission. Please see our website for more details. Displayed on screen are some upcoming events. And then under council members, I think we'll go first off to our item number 5BI, which is consideration of applications for vacated council position 4 and creation of a short list for interviews. And we'll come back to council for council comments when this item is completed. So I'm going to turn to our City Administrator Blaine Oborn for this presentation. Blaine?
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So just to walk you through the process here, next slide, please. Of course, Councilmember Dan Evans resigned. He resigned earlier in the term, so it's on the ballot for his position for a 2-year term. Council needs to get the appointment done by July 23rd, and we've got our schedule here next week at the workshop doing the July 3rd, 2023. Yeah. And then the appointment will serve through the appointment on the council in next week through November 28th, when the election is expected to be certified. So I covered the points there. We can go to the next slide. So here is the drum roll, please. These are the 9 applicants that have submitted their name. So one of them, the bottom one, has withdrawn. Since that time, the city council asked us to identify candidates or appointees that are interested or are saying that they're committed to run for office in the 2023 election. Out of these 8 left, one of them, Kelly Beadle, was the only one that indicated that was not going to run. All the other ones indicated they were going to run. So council asked for that extra information, so we did that. Regarding the process here, next slide. Here's your list, but we recommend that you do a short list of 3 to 5 applicants. The last 2 times we've done it at 4 applicants that did the interview. That's a good number. And then as far as the process, City Council can use a scoring system that Julie's ready to bring up on the screen if you want to go that, or certainly a council member could make a motion and list a number of candidates, and if it passes, you can go that way too. So with that, I'll answer any questions or walk you through the process.
So, Clerk, Julie is coming up with what?
Julie, if you want to go the option of using a scoring system.
Oh, I see, okay.
We have a list of the 8 left, and each council member can select 4 of them, is what I would recommend, and then we could do the ranking, or certainly, I think last time we were prepared to do this, and a council member made a motion and just did it. But so it's certainly your appointment, your way of doing it, so, and we're here to support.
So I'm going to turn to council then at this time and start with Mayor Pro Tem Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I went through the applications, and I have a short list. I have a top 5. So I think it'd be my prep if we just want to go, like, down the line, and we can each list, our short list, and then whichever candidates end up with the most votes at the end of the process would be who we end up interviewing, if that works for everybody else.
Councilor Stuckey.
Are you implying that we choose 5 as opposed to 4?
I have a top 5. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I mean, naturally, if we all give 4 or even 5, I would think that process we'll be able to see the tally, and there'd be almost like a natural cutoff. I mean, sometimes there's 3 that are like clearly up there, or it may be that all 9 of them are neck and neck. So I would be okay with 4 or 5, and then kind of seeing where that ranking system is before we make a decision on how many or who, or things like that. So,
Anyone else? Questions, input, suggestions? So, how do you choose to go about this? You just want to name them? Or Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay. Okay.
A small technical difficulty. I have 2 screens overlapping each other that I need to correct in order to be able to do more.
Your cursor won't move? You can help her? Okay.
Tim to the rescue.
Thank you for the pause, Mayor. Tim has fixed my technical difficulty.
Okay. So, Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure. Okay, my top 5 short list is John Shazar, Kelly Beadle, Earl Plumley, Wismine Davilar, I apologize for the pronunciation there, and Christopher Wittgenstein.
So I will go to Councilor Wiesner next, I guess. Are you ready for this, Councilor Wiesner?
Yes, Mayor. My top 5 are the top 5 on the list. John Cesar, Barbara Arms, Kelly Beadle, Andy Plumley, and Wismine.
What was the last one?
Wismine Diablar.
Okay.
Councilmember, would you give me the list once more, please?
The top 5 on the list: John Cesar, Barbara Arms, Kelly Beadle, Andy Plumley, and Wismine Diablar.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Munns, are you ready?
Yes, so. John Cesar, Christopher, Wisman, Barbara, and Kelly.
And what was the last one?
Barbara and Kelly.
Kelly, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn to Councilor
Yeah.
Marshall.
Did they have Christopher down?
Thank you, Mayor. Mine were John Cesar, Barbara Arms, Andy Plumley, Wismine, and Christopher Wittgenstein.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, John Cesar, Barbara Arms, Andy Plumley, Wismine Davilar, and Christopher Wittgenstein.
Okay, yes, Councilor Munns?
Mr. Oberon, I think we only have 4 of mine down, or maybe not more.
Yep, that is the other one Wismine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Caught up now? We got him? Okay, we'll turn to Councilor Hoffmeyer.
So is the requirement to pick 5 here, or can I pick 2? And the only reason I ask, I have 2 that are really clear at the top for me, and the rest feel pretty even. So, is that okay with everybody? Okay, all right. So, my top 2 are Wismine Diablar and Christopher Wittgenstein.
Okay, Councilor Stuckey.
I'll go slow. John Shazar, Christopher Wittgenstein, Barbara Arms, Wismine de Avalar, Teresa Addison.
So we can put them in manually, Julie, just, it's 5 for
Yep,
the first one?
I'm entering them manually now
Yeah, okay, awesome. That'll work.
because
Pretty easy to add.
Yep.
You're going the opposite way I was going.
am.
So we have, if I can read that right, 1-6, Julie?
Correct. Wismine de Avalar is the candidate,
Okay.
the applicant with 6.
Okay.
John Chazar, applicant has 5. Barbara Arms has 4. Kelly Beadle has 3. Earl Plumley has 3. Christopher Wittgenstein, or is Wittgenstein, I apologize if it's the other, has 5. And Teresa Addison has 1.
So number 1 is
So,
Diavalar.
Correct.
Is number 1. Then we have a tie for number 2, which is John Chazar and
Wittgenstein,
and
and Barbara Arms has 4. So those would be your top 4 candidates or applicants at this time would be Wismeen D'Avalar, Christopher Wigenstein, John Chazar, and Barbara Arms.
Okay, Councilor Stuckey?
I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with the top 4 candidates to the short list for interviews.
Second.
I would suggest for clarification, we name them.
My apologies. Wismini D'Avalar, John Chazar, Christopher Wigenstein, Barbara Arms.
Okay, so we've got a motion to move forward with the top 4, and they were just named. Motion second, motion by Councilor Stuckey, second by Councilor Hoffmeyer. Any other questions or input?
Mayor, I'm just going to announce, so if some of the council members are the candidates, potential appointee candidates, to make sure they're available for the workshop on Julie, May 24th at 2 p.m. And we'll do official notices, but this is your informal notice that you will. Hopefully you need to be present here because I think council wants to be able to interview you. So those 4 top candidates, congratulations, and please be available at the workshop for interviewing.
May 24th.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct, Mayor.
So we have motion second. We're just about to vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Same. Looks like it passes unanimously. Okay. All right, golly, we've got a plan moving forward. Thank you, and thank you from all interested parties. We've got a lot of committee assignments that we can use your help on too, so thank you. Love to see the interest. Okay, we'll move then to council comments. Councilor Stuckey.
Well, I just want to real quick riff off what you were talking about there with the openings on the boards and commissions. A lot of times it seems like folks go for these appointments, they don't get the appointment, and then they kind of just fall off the radar. I mean, I myself went through appointment, and I was not selected, and then I joined the planning commission. And I think it was only 10 months, and I made it to council, but that 10 months was definitely invaluable. So I'd encourage anyone who didn't make the short list, anyone who doesn't get appointed, anyone who doesn't get elected, be involved, especially on a board and commission, because we could use your help and input. So don't go away. Thanks.
Very well said. Councilor Wiesner.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up and say, yeah, absolutely, that's spot on, and pretty simple process. Go to the city website, and there's actually an application in there for the commissions, and fill out the application and select which commission you're volunteering for, and you'll be hearing back from us very quickly. It takes a community to run a community. It really does, and the fact that we had so many qualified candidates for this position. I can remember, a couple elections ago where we had a tough time filling one person running for each seat, right? To have that many people step forward and want to serve is just incredible, and I hope we can keep the momentum going with those people to get them to serve on a board in our community. And thank you for those of you from the high school coming out tonight. I did want to kind of address a little bit of what you brought up, just so you understand that we hear you, right? Northeast 7th Avenue, which is one of our probably most dangerous streets with no sidewalks in the city. We're in our final design phases to totally revamp that entire street, including sidewalks, landscaping, bike lane on that street, and we're going to continue those pushes. We're in our 3rd year of a 10-year plan to touch every community street in our town through the Transportation Benefit District. So we've rated each of the streets in our town, and we're handling them as the worst streets first, to kind of playing catch up. But we do have a plan over the next 10 years, and we do have a budget to do that, and we have a mapping system all done and a rating scale all done, and we know exactly what areas we're going to do in what order. And West Whidbey Avenue, you are going to see, if you stick around for the rest of the meeting, it's it's on the agenda for tonight to finally be approved. It unfortunately is an arterial, so it's a total different set of funds that has to come out of, and needed some much ado work under the street, the part you guys don't see, and it's a multi, as you'll see, it's a multi-million-dollar project that we're happy to finally get going. And we've been ramping up. Our engineering staff has been doing a really good job of getting all of our streets geocached and all of our infrastructure into computerized systems so that we can do these models and figure out, the plans to properly maintain this infrastructure rather than, just go along and patch it. So appreciate the input. Also, I wanted to address the input from the one comment about the dog parks and just again, public spot on. It was actually a pretty big discussion. We spent, I think, probably a good, Mr. Oborn, 45 minutes probably at the last Parks Board meeting, having a very in-depth discussion involving the lack of facilities for dog parks and how they are a recreational outlet and they are a economic driver, and it's something that we're going to be taking a really strong look at as to how to do better. We recognize that the existing facility we have is less than ideal in so many ways, both location, function. It's just, really not a real dog park, and certainly not something we're proud of. And we're going to take a look at how to do that. And we also, it was nice to see that he shared in there, the idea of kind of a pay-per-use type of a deal, because that may be one way that we can, work that through sooner than later, figuring out some sort of a model. Maintenance is the big issue with the dog parks, right? Just a ton of maintenance, and how do we properly maintain them and not be a burden and yet supply that service to the community, and maybe some sort of a pay-per-use gets us there sooner than later. But certainly all great comments tonight, and appreciate you all coming out. You did a great job. Thank you.
Councilor Munns.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I want to thank all the candidates who are brave enough to fill out the application with all the little lines. It's wonderful to see so many, and I do hope that you will look at the commissions. I also want to say to our high school debate team that if you are 18 years old and you live in the city, you can sign up for a commission. You can also run for office. So anyway, think about that. You made some good points tonight, and that would be nice to have the good points here up on council. So don't think you're too young. Doing National League of Cities, there was a mayor who was 30 years old from Missouri that got elected mayor of his town. So reach for the stars, have a plan, and go after it. I also wanted to add that Island Transit, besides adding Sunday service during the holiday, starting after 29th, 30th of May, they will add routes to the parks on the island, Deception Pass, Rhododendron, so check those out. It's seasonal during the summertime, but those are also new bus services. And thank you very much.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to remind the public and our young people that are here tonight with feedback about the streets and sidewalks that we invite all users, pedestrians, big and small, I loved that line, pedestrians, big and small, walkers, bikers, drivers, to fill out the survey for our active transportation plan. We are currently in the process of gathering information, the exact kind of information that you provided with specific suggestions and specific locations. If you go to oakharbor.gov, right there on the homepage, if you scroll down past the news and events, there's city spotlights, and the very first thing is the bike, walk, roll active transportation plan. If you click that link, it will bring you to a survey, and you can fill out that survey and give us all of the, as much detailed information as you want, which will help us make improvements in the future. So thank you very much. And to those watching at home, I really encourage everybody to fill out that survey because it'll let us know where the hot spots are, where the good spots are, where the trouble spots are, and we can respond accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
I think we might need the debate club to come start us out at every meeting. Council's hitting it out of the park tonight. Good job, guys. Councillor Wiesner, thanks for telling my pups bye on Saturday night. Thanks for the literal shade that you threw at us at Windjammer on Sunday, a 10x10 easy upright. Gosh, pretty spectacular down there at Shipwreck Shores this weekend. Pastor Kyle, thanks for the prayers tonight. We do need them more some nights than others. Thank you. To all the applicants, so exciting to see so much interest. I hope that each and every one of the applicants that intend on filing do so. Everybody on council is happy to answer any questions that they would have with regards to that. It is, so exciting to see this civic involvement. And, I think it was Councillor Wiesner that mentioned in the last meeting government for the people, by the people, as long as the people show up. And there had been some apathy. People stopped showing up, but they're coming back. It's exciting. So thank you to everybody. And the debate club, seriously, I hope that you guys can come again someday soon. I know school gets out for the summer, but we're still here. We dropped down to one meeting a month for a couple months, but we're still here. And, thank you to everybody tonight.
Okay. Any other council comments? Okay. Thank you for those. We will now move on to our agenda item number 6. Item number 6A is ordinance number 1970, amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code 20-04.100 thresholds for categorical exemptions. And to present that this evening, we should have our senior planner, Dennis Lefebvre. Dennis?
Yes, sir. Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I assume you can all hear me well. I am taking the SEPA thresholds to the final step tonight, and I've got a really brief presentation on PowerPoint. And you've all seen this a few times, so this is all nothing new, but SEPA has actually is a tool for local governments to review all new projects for any potential environmental impacts. SEPA obviously stands for the State Environmental Policy Act and is a very common tool used throughout the state. However, in WAC, there is a number of categorical exemptions which will not be required to engage in SEPA. And one of those categories is minor new construction. Several structures basically fall into this category, including single-family, multifamily, agricultural structures, minor office, school, commercial, and recreational developments, parking, landfills, and excavations. The last time, well, actually that category is considered a flexible threshold because the state allows a local jurisdiction to amend their thresholds or numbers of developments within that category to any amount up to the state listed maximums. The last time the Oak Harbor actually did amend their thresholds was back in August of 2004. So based on the recommendation of our Housing Action Plan, which was also based on the recommendation of the Island County Affordable Housing Task Force that was formed about 5 or 6 years ago, we decided to move forward and actually look at our thresholds and propose amendments. So we did that, and we came to your meeting back in February and proposed some thresholds and received some comments back to increase the number of single-family dwellings, the threshold for that, up to 20. Coincidentally, the Planning Commission also recommended the same thing, up to 20 dwelling units. And I think one of the reasons was that kind of keeps us at par with some of our other regional jurisdictions. So we, as staff, looked at that proposal and thought it was a good one, so we are recommending that we go up to 20 dwelling units. With that minor change, we did have to revise our findings that we sent off to Ecology. We informed the Ecology and Department of Commerce that we were making this minor change. And we are still under the state maximum of 30 dwelling units. So where are we as a city then? The middle line, I'll say, the middle row shows where we are existing. And the bottom row shows what we are proposing. Of course, we bumped up the single-family residential up to 20 units. The single-family less than 1,500 square feet was a brand-new category, kind of came in January, so we didn't really have a chance to do any analysis on that. So we are not going to propose any units in that category. Multifamily stays at 20. Office, school, and commercial, we are raising up to 12,000 square feet. Parking facilities, when they're standalone parking facilities, which we have very few of actually, 40 spaces, and then we're raising up the limit of fill and excavation up to 500 cubic yards. So with that, as according to municipal code, we are required to have a public hearing with the Planning Commission to receive their recommendation to your council, which they did on March 28th, and received a positive recommendation to move forward. As part of your packet, I've worked with the legal team to create an ordinance 1970. And we have two versions, one with showing the changes, proposed changes to the municipal code, and attachment 3 is a clean ordinance. So with that, staff would be happy to respond to any questions, but a recommended motion supporting adoption of Ordinance 1970 is on the screen for your use, and it's identical to the one that's part of your packet. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Lefebvre. So before we turn to council, I'd like to verify with our clerk that we've gotten no input from our public.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no input on this item.
Okay. Then I'll turn to council for questions. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Well, unless there's a discussion, I'm going to make a motion. I'm happy to do so. This is just another step in simplifying a process that has become, just very cumbersome. I can remember filling out many SEPA forms where NA throughout the entire form, 16 pages long of not applicable because the small projects just don't apply to them. And so the fact that we're taking this step and getting caught up with the state and the other municipalities around us is really exciting. So therefore I move to recommend adoption of
Councilmember
ordinance.
Wiesner, I'm so sorry to stop you. Mayor, technically this is a public hearing and we do need to open the public hearing.
Well, I should have read my notes. I'll bet it says that. Well, it does. I'm so sorry, Councilor Wiesner.
That's okay. The motion.
I'll remember pretty much everything you said. I'd like to open a public hearing at this time. Turn to the public and ask if there's anyone here that would like to comment on this subject.
Anybody?
Not Sienna Reich. Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing at this time. And where were you in that motion, Councilor Wiesner?
I move to recommend adoption of ordinance number 1970, amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code Section 20.04.100, threshold for categorical exemptions.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. I'm going to give the second, well, I'll give the motion to Councilor Wiesner. That was a clear finish on that one. The second I'm going to give to Councilor Munns. And the motion is exactly like what was on the screen and is in the packet, so I won't read that again. Motion second. Any other input or questions? Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
The only other input, modernizing the developmental code here is ongoing and continuous, and I can't thank staff enough for hanging in there with us on this. Got to be a tedious job, but thank you.
Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to add that the 40 parking spaces for 20 units helps, so hopefully we won't have all the cars on the street blocking access. So I really like the 40 parking spaces to go with the 20 units. Thank you.
Okay. Ready for the vote here? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, council and public. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Dennis. Nice to have you back. Okay, we'll go on to item number 7A. Under ordinances and resolutions, it's Resolution 23-09, Washington State Archives Technology Tools Grant application, and we have our grants administrator, Wendy Horn. Welcome, Wendy.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the Washington State Archives Technology Tools Grant application that we would like to apply for. And let's see if I can get this working. So you may remember that about a year ago to the day, I was standing here before you requesting approval to apply for our first Washington Archive grant for organizing the records room. And we received that grant. So just to let you know how that went, our public record officer, Alana Lake, spent 400 extra hours dispositioning records, which ended up being over 26 feet of paper records. She also developed a record retention training program. We purchased some archive boxes and new shelving, and she continues to wade through all of our paper records as she works, but the grant has ended at this point. So, the next step for the City Records Management Team is to apply for the 2023-2024 Archive Technology Tools Grant, if you approve it tonight. The request is for $30,000 to buy software and hardware. There's no match required, and this is due to archives on May 26th. So what they would like to do is purchase Laserfiche licensing and some dedicated scanners. The goal of this grant is to organize our electronic records now. It will create a searchable database. It will end duplicate copies that are stored in mini drives on the network. And ideally, it will actually reduce the amount of paper stored in offices around the city. Laserfiche is compatible with our web tools that we have now, Civic Plus and Engage. Alana Lake, our records officer, did a bunch of research on a variety of the different tools that are out there, and between records management and the IT staff, they really liked the Laserfiche tool. They just feel like the features that it has will really benefit the city. So with that, that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think Sabrina Combs is online too, that she can help answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Wendy. Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify that we've got no input from our public regarding this item.
That's correct, Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Julie. So no public hearing on this one. I'll just turn to council for comments, motions, or Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Julie, I just have a question. I appreciate, not Julie, I'm sorry, Wendy. I appreciate that there's not a matching requirement on this, but is the $30,000 enough to cover the cost of the purchase of the software and the scanners and the equipment and everything?
So we're actually currently doing a little negotiating with both Laserfiche and the state contract. So we don't know exactly what the amount is going to be, but we are pretty confident that it will stay at under that $30,000.
Good question. Councilor Munns?
Thank you, Mayor. Wendy, have we had to buy a new scanner or two to take some of the paper stuff and make it digital? I mean, when you talk about how many feet, 26 feet, and got to keep that, but it goes digitally, you know, that, I'm just curious. I don't mean to be
So I'm
funny,
gonna,
but
if
anyway.
Sabrina's online, do you want to address that real quick, Sabrina?
Yeah, so what we're currently working on is a couple of things to address that. One, we're going to utilize this tool so that we can put the documents in an electronic system. That electronic system, as Wendy said, would reduce the paper. But it is going to be a process working with staff to educate them. So one of the things we're doing to move this process along is to form a records management, information management team that will allow each department to work on it. When it comes to scanner purchasing, we have that as one of the items as part of this project, but our current scanners that we have through the Xerox machines do provide that tool, and they meet the requirements for the state archivist. So what we were doing was just making sure that if we needed it, we could fund potentially purchasing the equipment we might need to address that in other areas. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Just very curious about it.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
Yeah, love that this is a grant here that doesn't require a cost match. You know, however, I think even if it were our own money, probably would be a good investment with making the document searchable. Is there any assessment, any assumption on how much time and money that could save when it comes to records requests, et cetera?
I think that's something that is definitely going to be tracked, but other city governments that Alana had talked to did mention that, I mean, their public record request amount of time that it took them to get it done dropped pretty dramatically. So it will make a difference.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. You know, I've been downstairs and we've had to find handwritten notes on, you know, address files from the 70s. So pretty wild. So anyway, yes, I love this as well and definitely support it.
Councillor Stuckey.
I think I beat you to that one. I'll make a motion. I move to adopt Resolution 23-09, authorizing the mayor to approve an application for a technology tools grant for the Washington State Archives.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, and that motion reads exactly like the recommended action in your packet. So I won't read the motion again. That motion was made by Councillor Stuckey, seconded by Councillor Hoffmeyer. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. We are on a roll tonight. The one thing that wasn't mentioned, which I thought was interesting, and I learned that this morning, is that not just any scanner
Right.
can do this kind of work.
Right.
We've
Yeah.
got to have the right number.
Yeah, the state
I'm gonna-
archive has a standard that they want all the cities to live up to, so.
Yeah, Mayor, 600 DPI.
I thought it was horsepower. Okay, that's right. It is DPI. We did learn that together, yes. Thank you. So thank you, Wendy. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. We will now move on to item number 7B, Resolution 2311, U.S. Forest Service Urban and Community Forestry Grant Application, and Wendy is still here. That's why you're still
Yeah, I
here.
just figured I didn't need to leave.
Thanks, Wendy.
So our next grant request for your consideration is this Urban and Community Forestry Program grant. It is being offered through the U.S. Forest Service. It's an annual program that they have what we call a NOFO, or Notice of Funding Opportunity, every year. What's new this year is that the Inflation Reduction Act added $1 billion to this grant. So there's a lot of money available. We thought we'd take advantage of it, or at least try. The focus is equitable access to green spaces in cities, and projects can include things like urban and community forestry management planning, maintenance, monitoring, and planting of trees, preparation of severe storms, and improving resilient conditions, workforce development and training opportunities for green jobs. So our Parks and Recreation Department would like to apply for this grant. It's a 5-year grant. We are looking at about $2 million. We're still working on the budget to figure out exactly how much we'll ask for, but it will be roughly $2 million. A couple things. We are requesting a waiver for the matching requirement because as the City of Oak Harbor has an opportunity zone, we qualify for that exemption. We also will be requesting 10% indirect for administrative costs. And the deadline to apply for this one is June 1st. So, the Parks and Recreation Department has proposed a project with 3 parts. The first part is an urban and community forestry management plan. And this would be a short and long-term roadmap for managing Oak Harbor's forests and trees. It's a proactive and systematic way to monitor and take care of the maintenance of our trees in our city. The second part of the project would be urban forest resiliency projects, and this is basically, the funding would provide, funds to protect the trees, improve the canopy health, address diseased or dying trees, improve irrigation around the city, and expand trees into disadvantaged areas of the city. And then the third part of the project is to create a green career development program. And this would basically provide internships and apprenticeships for youth and students who are interested in pursuing jobs in the green careers. So we've been reaching out to a number of organizations for support of this grant. And to date, we have letters of support from the Oak Harbor Gary Oak Society and the Whidbey Island Conservation District. And we expect to have several more letters of support in the next few days or week or so. The city's park board will, their involvement is going to be key in this project, as well as community engagement is critical and essential to having this be a successful project. And the other thing that if we do get this grant, it will provide for some capacity building for the Parks and Recreation Department that's grant funded and not using city resources. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I have Tally here to answer the hard ones.
Thank you again, Wendy. Before we turn to council, I'd like to ask our clerk if we've had any input from the public regarding this.
Thank you, Mayor. No, we received no input from the public.
Thank you, Clerk Julie. Turn to council for input or questions or motions. Councilor Munns.
Well, thank you, Mayor. This question may be for Tally. So our forest areas of the city, I mean, I kind of know where some property we have that's undeveloped that is sitting there, but can you sort of give a scope of where our forestry, I mean, you don't think of Oak Harbor when you go down 8th Avenue, we see all the gorgeous Gary Oak trees, but would you mind, please?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, some of our forestry areas that we're looking at are like even in Windjammer, so we've had some dieback in there, so how we would replace them, what we would replace them with to make sure that they're sustainable for the future, and also looking into some of the trees that we have that are sick currently, can we cure them, or can we, what are we gonna have to replace them in the future? A good example, another place we're looking at is currently down Highway 20. There's no barrier protecting any of the irrigation or the sidewalks, so if we were to do that again, we'd want to put that sort of thing into play, look at what advice we get from other sources outside of a city, as what policies, what kind of irrigation and that sort of thing we'd want to put in for the long term. And some of the trees are just at full term, you know, they've hit their age limit, and it's time to think about where we're going to put them back at. Along Highway 20 again, they're growing so big that they're popping sidewalks everywhere. And that falls underneath within the urban forestry program. So it's not just in a forested area, it's also in between buildings, even around City Hall, where we can put them in, and how we manage them
to stay where we want them to be.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that.
And I'll just add that an urban forest, I guess, is defined as any trees within a city limit.
Councillor Hoffmeyer.
Got a couple of questions for you as well, Tally. The Pacific Madrona down there near the Japanese garden that met its end, do we know what caused that? Was it broadleaf killer? Do we know?
Yeah, madronas they have there's 7 sicknesses, and one of the 3, if they get 3 of the 7, then they have a fatal end. And that's what's going on down there, is they're getting multiple sicknesses. There are some strains of the madrona tree that we get now that can withstand it, but that they're a very sensitive tree. They're a very difficult tree to plant, even as we've seen in Windjammer, they put a bunch in. They're sensitive to things like direction, which way the root ball's pointed, and all sorts of really wild intricacies with them. So, yeah, that's what we're figuring there. We kind of planted a tree behind it. We're hoping that it will take its place. And Windjammer is one of those places that we looked at. We have a lot of tree failure because of poor soil conditions down there. So in a lot of those cases, it matters of taking out about 4 times the size of a root ball to put back good soil that the tree will start strong in, and then it can take off into the other soil.
Good job. I know you're not Jack, but very good job answering that. Just a couple other questions. When we make the investment in this, and I know this is something you're passionate about, and maybe we could put plaques down there, keeping that broadleaf killer away from the drip line on those trees, et cetera, because I know that can take a lot of them out. Investing in, when there's sidewalks near, investing in trees that don't pop those sidewalks. And I know that's all stuff you're familiar about, and this is exciting as well.
There's good technology out there that's come a long ways. They've learned a lot, and that's partially what the plan is about, is to help bring some of the learnings that has gone on in other cities to our city so that we're not making the same mistakes.
Tree City, I like it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 23-11, authorizing the mayor to approve the grant application to the USFS Urban and Community Forestry Program for up to $2 million.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. That motion reads exactly like the recommended action in the packet. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen, seconded by Councillor Munns. Any other input or questions about that motion? Yes, Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Wendy, I do have one question. I'm on this 10% indirect for administrative costs. What is the likelihood that we would get that, or that if we get this grant, that's going to come back to us to be asked to pay that 10%?
We just include that in our budget. The city can ask for, it's called the 10% de minimis.
Go ahead.
Okay. And it's just, it's an overhead cost that can be requested by any government agency to cover things like part of my salary or finance, those kinds of things. It's just an overhead. If we put it in the budget, we'll get it. If we don't include it in the budget, we won't.
I can add to that. It's routine. I don't think that hurts us. We use the standard 10%. The county is somewhere in the 20%. They file with their cognizant agency and get a higher indirect cost. So we're just taking the standard one. We haven't filed for a higher indirect. We've just been taking the 10%. It makes sense for us to do that. At some point, we're going to have a grants position that's not going to be ARPA funding. And if we do the 10%, that's a way for us to fund that position. So that's why we're putting it in here. This is a 5-year grant period, so it's going to be outside our ARPA that expires in 2024. So I think going forward, we're going to take advantage of that. And other grants, we're going to put the engineering in there, some of the design, in-house design. We haven't taken advantage with some of those areas there. Personally, I don't think it's pretty routine, and I don't think it hurts us in the application process to have that 10% in there.
No, I think it's great, and I fully support doing that. My only concern is that we get the $2 million grant, and they say, no, now you have to fund the 10% for the administrative costs, and that's $200,000 that we weren't really planning on doing. And so that's my only concern, but I applaud you for building that in there, and I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Marshall. So we have a motion and a second. Are you ready to vote? Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
So, yes, since the high school debate team is here, I wanted to tell you that you just heard a presentation where she mentioned $1 billion when she started. We don't have $1 billion at the city of Oak Harbor. So, but I do want to tell you that in my position as mayor, I'm really lucky because I get to go to Washington, D.C. once in a while, actually once a year. I have for 7 years. And I don't remember which trip it was to Washington, D.C. I was in a conference, National League of Cities conference, and they threw out the number $7 trillion. Well, that's a big number. If you haven't sat down to figure out how many zeros are in 7 trillion, you can do that as a homework assignment after this meeting. I had to do that, and it took me a little while to figure that one out. 7 trillion, big numbers, billion, big number. We do deal in millions sometimes in the city of Oak Harbor, and we're fortunate to be able to do that. So thanks to council, thanks to Whidbey. We've had some opportunities here that we haven't had. So thank you very much. And with that said, we'll go on to item number 8 on our agenda, contracts and agreements. Item number 8A, West Whidbey Avenue Utility Improvements Project Award. And we have our city engineer, Mr. Alex Warner. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, I am Alex Warner, your city engineer, and I am pleased to present to you today the West Whidbey Avenue Utility Improvements and Overlay Project Award. I will keep my presentation short and simple, but I can answer any of your questions at the conclusion of my presentation. So we have the West Whidbey Avenue project extending from Northwest Gibb Street to Oak Harbor Street. It's approximately half a mile. It's really 3 capital projects rolled into one contract. We are replacing the water main as part of our AC and steel water main replacement. We are replacing a length of stormwater line that is deteriorated. And we are doing a full roadway overlay and restriping. And I do want to mention that 85% of the overlay and striping costs will be covered by the Transportation Improvement Board with the state. And that is, thanks to council for allowing us to apply for that grant this last year. So we had a bid opening here in council chambers May 9th. Our consulting engineer had estimated the total project cost at $2.93 million. And we received 4 bids. All were considerably lower than our estimate. The low bid and who we're asking to award the contract to as a responsible and responsive bidder is C. Johnson Construction with a bid of $1,709,090.86. So with that being said, I have a recommended motion, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Alex. So before I turn to council, I want to make sure that we've received no input from our public regarding this.
That's correct, Mayor. We received no input on this item.
Thank you, Julie. I don't know what I'm going to do when you say that we have, but I guess I welcome always. So I'll turn to council at this point in time, and I turn to Councilor Stuckey.
My man. I'm gonna miss asking what's going on with West Whidbey. So One thing we heard over and over, at least I have, is when are we going to do West Whidbey? And last year we put out that wonderful video that explained why we can't just do West Whidbey like that. So this is one of those things that, wow, it's getting done. It's getting done under what we guessed. This is amazing. It's one of those things that I can't wait to hit the news cycle. So I'm going to make the motion because I'm excited, but then, of course, we can talk about it too. So I can't mess the motion up here. Yeah, well, I don't have my glasses. It is ready. I'd like to make the motion that we award the contract for West Whidbey Utility Replacement Project to the low bidder C. Johnson Construction in the amount of $1,709,090.86 and authorize the Public Works Directors to sign change orders up to standard amount of $250,000 in total.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. That motion is pretty much very close to the recommended action that's in your packet. I'll read it again if you'd like. That motion was made by Councilor Stuckey and seconded by Councilor Munns. And I'll turn to Mayor Pro Tem Heisen at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize if this was in the packet and I missed it. There's a comment, due to traffic volumes on the street and the proximity to the high school, the project work needs to take place in the summer months. Does that mean that, and that's why the bid process was accelerated, does that mean that this will be done by the end of the summer? Is that our estimated timeframe for completion?
Yes, and that's where we'll get schedule clarification from our contractor.
Okay.
We can do only so much in our bid documents to control that schedule, but if we start the work in mid-June, our contract days will expire end of August.
Okay.
So that was, an expectation of the contractors bidding on this. And yeah, we know the Whidbey is a vital connection for all the school buses, but also parents going to the various schools on West Whidbey. So that is entirely our goal to have it wrapped up by the time school starts in the fall.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Alex, in your presentation, I know you mentioned TBD, and that's part of the money's coming from that. Not everybody knows that we passed that and what that money is.
Well, sure, and to clarify, this money that I referenced was the TIB.
Oh, TIB,
So
okay.
this is a state funding source, the Transportation Improvement Board. So that is a source of funds that we haven't tapped into for quite some time.
Thank you, my mistake.
Nope, I can speak to the TBD as well. So the TBD is a Transportation Benefit District, and that is funded by a 0.2% sales tax that the voters approved in 2020, and that brings in approximately $1 million in sales tax revenue. That TBD money can only be used on locally classified streets. West Whidbey is a minor arterial, so we have a different source of funds for this project.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm excited about this for several reasons. Obviously, we're getting it done. I'm also excited to see that the construction budgets are starting to come back in line. Right, we're starting to see, some normalcy in that. Let's face it, it was a runaway train there for a while, and it was, no stopping it for us. And there was a point in time where we couldn't even get one person to bid a project, much less 4 contractors. And I'm excited to see that we've got some local contractors that have bid this, SRV, C. Johnson, Corey hires a lot of local people. So not only, are we funneling, getting this job done, but we're funneling this money back into our economy with the local contractor, hiring local people. So I'm really excited about that. I just, I'm a little concerned that I'm not going to be able to find a new part-time job for Councilmember Stuckey after this. I don't know what we're going to do with all of his spare time and not answering Whidbey Avenue questions on Facebook. So, we're going to have to work on that, but I'm really excited that we're heading the right direction in many ways with this contract. Thank you.
of course. And if I may, I was attending the Hillcrest Elementary Carnival this last Friday evening with my family. We were in line for the hand-spun cotton candy. And who should be directly in front of me but Mr. Stuckey and his family? And he turns around and says, "What about West Whidbey?" So, so I think perhaps next year he can ask me about Northeast 7th at the carnival.
Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Pretty sure his wife said he says West Whidbey in his sleep even. I don't know, is that true? Alex, your department's kicking butt, thank you. You know, go back a year and a half ago when council had our retreat, and, you know, this was, you know, all 7 of us had this as an extremely high priority. You know, to the accelerated timeline you got on this, the work that Wendy did as well, pretty amazing. Yeah, to see something that we thought was going to be 2.9 million come in at 1.7, that's incredible. And I think, to Councilor Wiesner's comment with, with Corey Johnson and Steve Barnesy both being willing to bid on this, there's no better sign that council and the city has its act together when you have local contractors that know the game, that are willing to start bidding on our projects again. Very, very, very encouraging. And I can't wait to see all this summer holds. And as far as the next part-time job for all of us, it's pretty easy. It's going to be Northeast 7th, you know that. So
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Any other council comments? So we have a motion and a second to vote on still, I believe. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. And that too passes unanimously. Thank you, Alex. Great job.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, we'll move to our last item on our agenda, and that is item number, 8B. 8B is an interlocal cooperative agreement with North Whidbey Pool Park and Rec District for mowing. And we have our city administrator, Mr. Oborn, to present this.
City Council. I also have our Parks Operations Lead, Tally Huck, to answer any technical issues. The interlocal, if we can go over to the next slide, I'll kind of give some acknowledgement here. We do have some people that are involved with the North Whidbey Pool Park and District, so in talking to our attorney, we want to acknowledge that. Our City Economic Development Coordinator, Steve McCaslin, also is an elected official, a commissioner of the North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation District. Mr. Caslin hasn't had any involvement with this project at all, but in talking to the attorney, we wanted to acknowledge it. And the next one, Councilmember Shane Hoffmeyer is ready to discuss his acknowledgement. Yeah.
Yeah, chatted with Hillary this morning, like seems to be fairly often. So real quick, partnerships, ILAs, IGAs within government are a great thing with regards to being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. As everyone knows, I am an employee of the North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation District. As an employee whose compensation consists entirely of salary, I have no financial interest within this agreement. I declare my remote interest with the partner agency as defined in RCW 42.23.040. I am elected to vote, and that's exactly what I will be doing on this agenda item.
Thank you, Mayor. If just to kind of acknowledge, the city attorney also recommended that we acknowledge these two acknowledgements in our housekeeping. With that, I could go on to the actual subject matter. So here, interlocal agreement here. So we own the property that the pool sits on, and the pool has a 25 to probably 50-year. You can extend it to lease with the city here. It designates locations, and in talking to it, there's a location that they take care of, and then there's other locations that we're already mobilized in that area there. And we were approached by the district to ask if we can just take over the mowing in that area and do a little extra in that area, and we come up with a fair market value of $2,000 annually for those extra services. This agreement would extend through December 31st, 2020, unless terminated with a 30-day notice earlier, or 90-day notice earlier is the terms of it. And then simple recommended motion here just to approve the agreement, and Tally and I are here to answer any questions, and
So I'm going to correct, you said 2020.
2024.
2024.
Well, I can't get
There
numbers
you go.
right, can I? 2024, so thank you for keeping me on.
Okay.
Yep.
So the recommended action is there before us. Okay, so I'd like to ask if there's been any input from the public.
Mayor, we do have Jay Cochran who wished to speak to this item.
Wonderful. Jay, welcome.
Thank you. I have some visual aids if anybody would like one. And what they were to show is the exact part that would be mowed. Altogether, it takes between 15 to 20 minutes for the city staff to accomplish it because they are already there. And outside the yellow area is where they're already mowing. And so this seems like an easy, quick way to save taxpayer money, because otherwise we contract this service out. We don't have the ability to mow in-house currently. We don't have a place to store a big mower, so we already contract this out. It is something I've been working on since June of 2021, and with some staffing changes that have happened within the city, we haven't gotten around to it. So I decided to jump on the new Parks and Rec director when he started to try and get this back in place towards the goal we had already been moving at. So I'm hoping that you support this today. I know through discussions with most of you, we are trying to work together in more meaningful ways that save taxpayer money, and I believe this is one step towards that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I'll turn to council.
Mayor?
Yes.
And if I may just clarify that Councilmember Hoffmeyer's vote should not be counted with the total votes in the official minutes.
I'm not sure I heard that correctly.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Hoffmeyer's vote should not count in the official minutes.
Okay, everybody understand that? Okay. Then we will, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I definitely support this. I think that it makes a lot of sense in terms of efficiency. If we're going to be out there anyway and we can do it in a more cost-effective way, then it can be accomplished by, contracting it out. I think that this is a good example of how agencies can work together to get things done. And if this will make everybody's life a little easier, then it has my support. Thanks.
Anyone else? Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have some concerns with this, and one is that our park staff is already overtasked. I mean, we've talked about this. I spoke with Brian earlier today, and we have a lot of parks to maintain already. We have a lot for our park staff to do, and so to add more onto it, I feel like it just is a little bit muddy, just with kind of some of the people that we have in place that have a connection between the two entities. I think if there's money that can be spent on maintenance, then go ahead and continue to contract for private maintenance. I mean, that's, I also wonder what the precedence it sets, for any other entity that may be renting from the city that just says, okay, well, now I want the Parks Department to do my maintenance as well, and I'm going to throw a little bit of money at it. Eventually we're going to be, it'll get to the tipping point where we're not bringing in enough money to cover the extra labor, or we have to hire extra labor, which is going to be over this $2,000 limit or $2,000 price tag. So for me, I just think it's a little bit too muddy, and would like to see our Parks Department continue to do what the Parks Department does, and that is maintain our public facilities, and that in any rental agreement, whether it be public, private, or otherwise, typically the person that's renting that space is responsible for the maintenance, and so, and that would include yard maintenance. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. There isn't a time limit in this. It just says annually, so you don't know if this is going on for 10 years, 20 years, or this is just for a year. I don't
From my
remember.
slide I presented.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I
I see
mentioned
it.
the date wrong. It's not 2020. It's through December 31st of 2024.
Okay, sorry. Okay, and Tally? The equipment's already there. Supposedly it takes 15 to 20 minutes. This is a way of, does it pay for the time your staff would have to do that 15, 20 minutes? I mean, cooperation and saving money on both sides should be a good thing, but we are understaffed for our parks. We're already there, so we're already working the park, the city park area around that. So, some honest,
Yeah, we're already there at Volunteer Park, so the mowing in and out is really, we're there, and we're also doing the center there. We may do some mowing around that area, and it will take, it depends on the season. Grass is very cyclic, is what, you come in the summer, dead of summer, you can be done in 10 or 15 minutes. You come in the grow season in the fall or the spring, you're looking at probably a half an hour. Winter, you're probably looking at next to nothing, most of the winter months, there'll be hardly any mowing or weed trimming or anything like that. So it will be, on average out, I think, right in that area.
okay, and then the Boys and Girls Club is over there, so they mow their own?
As of right now, we do the retention pond, stormwater does that area behind them, and they don't have much lawn, but what little is there, which I think is one pass with our mower, we've been taking care of up to this point.
All right, and then there's an extra trailer there that was used as a foot clinic for a while, and was also for respite, people who had a special need, parent, child, they could leave them there so they could go to a doctor appointment at the time. That's also in there. It's on city property, but it's actually, I think, owned by the center now.
Well, the lease only covers the interior, so exterior is all our responsibility.
Oh, okay. All right, I just wanted to check, so
Yeah.
thank you very much, appreciate it.
And the other comment there on staffing, just to let you know, the workshop on next week is going to talk about bringing in a proposal to increasing park staffing.
Hallelujah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'd like to correct one other thing. Councilor Munns mentioned Boys and Girls Club. I think she meant Big Brothers Big Sisters, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Stuckey.
Couple questions. How did we reach that fair market value?
Staff, I think, vetted the hours and discussed it. I think, Tally, you were probably part of that discussion there. They looked at the time, they looked at the value of the staff, and kind of came up with that number. I let them kind of do it, but I know they were crunching it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Brian and I went through the numbers and we looked at it, and it's very, very close, for the level of service, what we would provide, and we'd be right in there.
Do we have any idea how much Parks and Rec is currently paying for maintenance?
Parks and Rec.
I'm sorry, North Whidbey Parks and Rec. I apologize.
I can't answer for the district.
Okay.
We could ask.
Can we ask? Is that okay? Are you willing to answer? There's no objections?
In order to save money, we do it as an as-needed basis, and in the last 2 years, we've spent between $2,300 and $2,500 just for the pool. We do also contract for Clover Valley Park, but we did not include that in this request because it is outside of city limits, and you are not currently anywhere near that area. Thank you.
I do share a little bit of Councilman Marshall's concerns. On the other hand, we are right there already. I mean, if we weren't already right there, I would be much more objecting to this. I noticed our Parks and Rec director is on vacation, but I haven't heard any objections from the Parks and Rec department, and I think they'd be the ones that would best know if this is out of our wheelhouse and feasibility of what we can do.
I guess to answer that, I mean, we can go both ways. I mean, there's pros and cons to this, so I acknowledge some of the pros and I acknowledge some of the cons, so, and it's up to council to make the decision.
I did talk to Brian right before this meeting and to make sure that everything was still in line and kind of what we discussed, and he said that yes, he would have never put this before you had he did not think it was a good idea for us to partner.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Tally, isn't this a lot of the type of work that our summer interns do? Don't we typically have them on mowing and weed eating and?
No, this would be with our larger X marks, our 48-inch units would go in there and do this, most of it. And no, that would be more of the staff that we would use. We have certain staff we put on that machine. We don't put interns or anything like that on those machines yet.
And is that machine used pretty constantly? I mean, are we straining the?
We have 3 of them.
Okay.
And they run this right now. We wish we had 4. I mean, we run them all the time right now. So, yeah, they're going through there. Basically, they don't turn their blades off if they go through there.
You know, I guess that goes back to, Councilmember Marshall's concern, right? There's that tipping point, right, where, when 3 is not enough and 4 is too many, right? And, when we reach that tipping point, is the question. In the end, you don't see this, however, I mean, being the guy who's got to get it done, you don't see this as a hindrance to your department?
No, I do not, because they walk through there to go do the other side of the park. Basically, the pool is its own island inside the park, and so we're going, basically mowing all the way around it,
Yep.
So
Yep.
they'll be same stop.
Okay.
Unload the equipment the same amount of times. So it's
All right.
just a swing by, and as we're walking by, interns will sometimes be on weed eaters, trimming it out for the mowers, though.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a place that would interns or seasonal help might be used.
Okay. All right, thank you, Tally.
Okay. Turn back to council. Yes, Councilor Marshall?
Thank you, Mayor. Tally, I got one more for you, so you might as well stand up there. So when figuring the fair market value, were we figuring labor, or we figuring depreciation of equipment and fuel and others that goes along with that? Because we've heard already that this assessment is less than what they've been paying per and as need basis. And one of the things we're being asked to do is weekly during the busy season or during the growing season. So it would seem that $2,000 is not enough, given that they were already paying more than that.
Oh boy, good question. You're right, there is some numbers in there that probably could be worked up a little bit more, but since we were already there, like I said, we don't move in. We're mostly figuring on our labor cost is what we were worrying about there. The equipment, an extra, what we're talking, 30 hours a year on one mower. That's really not too big of a deal, I don't think. But yes, you're correct. The equipment and fuel and so forth was not figured into that.
Thank you.
Okay, how does council want to proceed? Mayor Pro Tem.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement with North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation to provide mowing around the pool facility.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second, and that motion reads exactly like the recommended action motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen, second by Councilor Munns. So back to council, input, questions, are you ready for the vote? Yes, Councilor Munns.
Comment. And listening to, yes, I agree. They haven't figured in the gas or the, equipment is used so much, it gets downgraded, and to replace it. And the $2,000 will not be enough money to replace or to buy a new one. But because this is an island inside our thing, it's more trouble to stop mowing, I think, than it is to, as he said, they will unload the one time and then load it back up, so they do the whole job. It's a year and a half, and it could be adjusted after that if it's not worthwhile. If we don't get the additional workers that we're hoping to, then we drop it. And I don't think it's that big of a loss to us for a year and a half. So I'm encouraged to try this, and if we need to renegotiate the price next time, or just say, hey, I'm sorry, we can't handle it, you're just gonna have to go back and find somebody privately. But it sounds like it's actually more work to stop the blades. You know, you're going and went, oops. So now you've just mowed one swath and it takes two. So I would just encourage us to try it at this time, and if it doesn't work, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other council input or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes 5-1. Thank you for some really good questions and some really good input, and that's the way the process is supposed to work. And you know what? We don't always agree. We just proved that, didn't we? So we have no other business on our agenda for this evening. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, wave goodbye and say thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for listening out there in the public.